You've been staring into the abyss for 6 hours today. The abyss has been staring back, and it's been taking notes. You know the routine. You wake up, and before you're even fully conscious, your hand reaches for your phone. The scroll begins. An AI-generated image you can't quite tell is fake. A news story about a quantum computing breakthrough you'll never understand. A political crisis in a country you've never heard of that might somehow affect everything. It's 3 in the morning now, and you're still scrolling, feeling simultaneously overstimulated and completely hollow. There's something in your chest. Not anxiety exactly. More like a low humming wrongness. The sense that everything is moving too fast in too many directions at once. You understand less and less while somehow knowing more and more. Here's what should disturb you. H.P. Lovecraft died in 1937. He never saw a computer. He never experienced the internet. He never watched an algorithm learn his preferences better than he knows them himself. And yet he predicted exactly what you're feeling right now. How does a racist pulp fiction writer from the 1920s describe our exact psychological moment? Why do his stories about incomprehensible cosmic entities feel less like fiction and more like documentary in 2025? What if the horror we're living through isn't metaphorical at all? To understand why 2025 feels Lovecraftian, we need to go back to the moment Lovecraft discovered the engine of cosmic horror. And it started with a revelation that broke him. Picture this. It's the 1920s. And humanity is watching the universe get too big to comprehend in real time. Astronomers turn their telescopes outward and discover galaxies beyond the Milky Way. In the span of a decade, the universe expands from thousands of light years across to billions. Everything humanity believed about its place in creation collapses like a house of cards. Lovecraft was an amateur astronomer. He watched this happen. He saw the universe become incomprehensibly vast while sitting in his study in Providence, Rhode Island. And unlike most people who could compartmentalize this information, Lovecraft actually processed what it meant. He felt it viscerally. In his letters, he writes, "The cosmos is a jest. Mankind is a momentary incident in the life of one of the meanest of planets." This isn't philosophical posturing. This is psychological vertigo. This is what happens when your brain tries to hold the truth of cosmic scale and your nervous system simply cannot accommodate it. Before this moment in human history, we lived at the center of creation. After it, we became a cosmic accident on an unremarkable rock. Lovecraft describes the feeling like discovering you're an ant who briefly gained consciousness. So he started writing. And the pattern he created appears in almost every story. An ordinary person researches something strange. They dig deeper. They discover evidence of vast forces or entities operating on scales beyond human comprehension. They realize these forces control everything, always have, and humanity exists at their mercy without ever knowing it. And here's the crucial part. They cannot return to normal life after this. The knowledge corrupts. The protagonist either goes mad or lives in permanent dread. His most famous story, The Call of Cthulhu, opens with this line: "The most merciful thing in the world is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents." The story follows a sculptor who has disturbing dreams, then discovers global evidence of an ancient entity stirring beneath the Pacific Ocean. The horror isn't the tentacled monster. The horror is the knowledge that humanity exists at the mercy of sleeping gods we never knew were there. The horror is realizing we're cosmically irrelevant. Here's what nobody tells you about Lovecraft. He wasn't writing fantasy, he was writing diagnosis. He looked at what science had revealed about the universe and asked a question most people refuse to consider. What does it do to us psychologically to know we don't matter? Most horror gives you monsters you can fight. Evil you can defeat. Lovecraft's horror is scale and indifference you cannot fight. The entity doesn't hate you. It doesn't even notice you. And knowing this breaks something fundamental in the human psyche. Lovecraft was responding to telescopes making the universe too big to comprehend. We're responding to the internet making everything too big to comprehend. Same psychological mechanism, different scale, and it's accelerating. But why does this formula describe 2025 so perfectly? Why do ancient entities, incomprehensible scale, and corrupting knowledge map onto our daily experience? Because the mechanism Lovecraft identified isn't fictional. It's a measurable psychological breaking point, and we're hitting it every single day. Human cognition evolved for tribes of 150 people. Threats we could see with our eyes. Time frames we could grasp intuitively. We have what we might call a comprehensibility threshold. Beyond it, systems stop feeling like things we can understand and start feeling like incomprehensible forces acting upon us. You can understand 100 friends. You cannot understand 1 million followers. You can grasp a 10-step process. You cannot grasp a 10,000-line algorithm. You can conceive of 100 years. You cannot truly conceive of 1 billion. When systems exceed this threshold, your mind cannot construct a coherent mental model. So instead, it generates dread. This is the architecture of cosmic horror, and it has 3 components. First, scale beyond comprehension. In Lovecraft's work, this looks like ancient entities millions of years old, alien cities miles deep underwater, geometries that hurt to perceive. In 2025, this looks like data centers processing exabytes of information, AI models trained on trillions of parameters, global supply chains with billions of moving parts. Your mind attempts to grasp the scale and simply cannot. The cognitive dissonance manifests as unease. Second, indifferent forces controlling your fate. Cthulhu doesn't hate you. You're beneath notice. In 2025, algorithms decide whether you get the job through resume screening AI. They determine who you meet through dating apps. They construct your entire perceived reality through content recommendation systems. These systems aren't malicious. They're optimized for engagement, for profit, for efficiency, not for your well-being. You are data, not a person. The indifference is structural. Third, forbidden knowledge that corrupts. In Lovecraft stories, characters learn cosmic truths and lose their sanity. In 2025, the more you understand how systems actually work, the worse you feel. Learn how your data is collected and monetized. You develop paranoia. Understand how algorithms manipulate attention. You can't enjoy content anymore. Research AI capabilities. You spiral into existential dread about employment and the future of human meaning. Study climate models in depth. You can't maintain hope. Knowledge doesn't empower you. It contaminates your ability to function normally. A 2024 psychology study on complexity aversion and learned helplessness found that when people encounter systems they cannot understand, they exhibit withdrawal behavior, a profound sense of powerlessness preference for simplified explanations, even when they know those explanations are wrong, and persistent anxiety when forced to engage with the system. This is identical to how Lovecraft describes cosmic horror's psychological effects. Let me give you a specific example of how this operates right now. ChatGPT passes the bar exam. It writes functional code. It creates art. And here's the thing. The developers cannot fully explain why it produces specific outputs. The term they use is emergent capabilities, behaviors that appear which weren't explicitly programmed. You're using a tool that exceeds its creator's comprehension. This is textbook Lovecraft. An entity whose functioning is unknowable. Or consider TikTok's recommendation algorithm. It knows you better than you know yourself. It shows you content you didn't search for but will absolutely watch. No human being curated your feed. Machine learning identified patterns across billions of user interactions and built a model of your preferences that operates beneath conscious articulation. It's shaping your worldview through mechanisms you cannot see, understand, or control. You are being influenced by incomprehensible intelligence. Now think about economic precarity. Your job gets displaced by AI you don't understand. Your company restructures based on data-driven decisions no executive can actually explain. Your financial security depends on market algorithms executing trades in microseconds based on variables no human can track in real time. Forces beyond your comprehension control your material existence. This is Lovecraft's ancient forces controlling human fate, made completely literal. The counter-argument goes, just learn how it works, take a coding class, read the research papers. But here's the problem. The systems genuinely exceed individual human comprehension. No single person understands the full stack, not the hardware architecture, not the training data, not the model weights, not the emergent behaviors. Even AI researchers openly state, we don't fully know how these models make certain decisions. The horror isn't educational, it's structural. And here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. In Lovecraft's stories, cosmic horror is theoretically escapable. You can close the forbidden book. Stop researching the ancient cult. Return to ignorance. But you cannot opt out of algorithms. You cannot unplug from systems that determine your employment, your information access, your social connections, your perceived reality. The call isn't coming from some distant Pacific island. The ancient entity isn't sleeping in eerily. It's in your pocket. It's running in the background of every website you visit. It's mediating every digital interaction you have. The universe got too big for Lovecraft over the course of decades. Our systems exceed comprehension every few months. GPT-3 to GPT-4 represented a one-year leap in capability that stunned even the researchers. You cannot adapt fast enough. You exist in a permanent state of cognitive vertigo. We're not using metaphor here. We're describing identical psychological conditions. If this still sounds abstract, let me show you something. 2025 isn't like a Lovecraft story. It has the same narrative structure, beat for beat. We're living with three distinct great old ones, the algorithm. In The Color Out of Space, an entity from beyond corrupts everything it touches. It doesn't communicate, doesn't negotiate. It just transforms the landscape into something subtly wrong. Content algorithms do this at civilizational scale. The 2024 Surgeon General issued warnings linking social media algorithms to the teen mental health crisis. Your attention span shrinks, your preferences shift, your worldview narrows, and you barely notice the corruption happening. Twitter's algorithm changes weekly. No one outside the company knows how it functions. Instagram constructs your feed based on billions of micro-interactions. YouTube recommends content using patterns extracted from 2.5 billion users. You cannot predict it, understand it, or control it. It knows you better than you know yourself. Your choices feel less like choices and more like something curated by an external intelligence. Classic Lovecraft, loss of self in the face of a greater force. Artificial intelligence. In At the Mountains of Madness, explorers discover an ancient civilization that preceded humanity. They realize humans aren't original or special. We're just the current iteration. Our existence is rendered retroactively meaningless. In January 2025, AI systems pass creative Turing tests. Midjourney creates art that wins competitions. AI coding assistants write 40% of the code at Google. The revelation: humans aren't the apex of creativity or intelligence. We're the precursor. An artist spends 10 years mastering their craft. AI learns in months from scraped internet data without permission. The client asks, why would I pay you when AI does it instantly? Your skill, your identity, your livelihood rendered obsolete by a process you cannot comprehend or compete with. A February 2025 study found that 64% of knowledge workers report AI-related job anxiety. The sleeping god is awakening, and it's better at your job than you are. This is exactly Lovecraft's theme, confronting your cosmic irrelevance in real time. The information void. In The Whisperer in Darkness, the protagonist receives contradictory information and cannot determine truth. Reality itself becomes unreliable. Knowledge becomes corrupted. You cannot tell real from fake anymore. AI-generated images flood search results. Deepfake videos show politicians saying things they never said. LLM-written articles with no human author rank on Google. Bot accounts argue with you on social media, and you cannot tell if you're talking to a person or a machine. Is this person real? Is now a legitimate question you must ask. A 2024 study found that 73% of people report news exhaustion and reality fatigue. You see an event on social media. 5 contradictory explanations appear immediately. You cannot determine truth. Not because information is lacking, because there's too much information, all contradictory, all plausible. Your ability to construct a coherent model of reality collapses. This is epistemic horror. You cannot trust your own perception. Here's the Lovecraft plot structure. An ordinary person encounters strange phenomena. They investigate and discover evidence of vast forces. They realize these forces control everything. They cannot return to normal life. The knowledge corrupts them. They go mad or live in dread. Here's your 2025 experience. You notice something's wrong. Algorithms behaving strangely. AI improving impossibly fast. Truth becoming fluid. You research it. You read articles. Try to understand mechanisms. You realize it's everywhere, and you cannot control any of it. You cannot unplug, because you need your phone for work, for social connection, for basic societal function. You exist in a constant state of low-grade dread, with a persistent sense of unreality and powerlessness. You're not reading a Lovecraft story. You are the protagonist, and we're well past the part where you can close the book. So what do we do? In Lovecraft's fiction, there's no escape. The truth destroys you. But maybe that's not actually the lesson. Maybe the lesson is darker, stranger, and somehow more freeing. Remember the scroll? The abyss staring back? You're not addicted to your phone in the conventional sense. You're responding to the same psychological trigger as Lovecraft's characters. You're glimpsing vast, incomprehensible forces that shape your existence. The scroll never ends because the entity feeding it is inexhaustible. You feel dread because your instincts correctly identify that you are not in control. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to state plainly. Lovecraft was right. Not about the racism. We can discard that entirely. But about the fundamental structure of modern existence. We live at the mercy of systems we cannot comprehend. Algorithms shape reality. AI exceeds human capability. Truth becomes fluid. You are cosmically insignificant in the information ecosystem, and no amount of productivity hacks or self-optimization or scientific literacy changes this basic fact. The horror is permanent. This isn't a temporary crisis we'll solve. This is the new baseline of human existence. 2025 isn't uniquely terrible. It's just the first year we collectively noticed we're living in a Lovecraft story. But here's what Lovecraft's protagonists missed, and it's crucial. Cosmic indifference cuts both ways. If the universe doesn't care about you, it also doesn't care if you live differently. The algorithm doesn't judge your worth as a human being. It just optimizes for engagement. AI doesn't hate you. It simply processes information. The void doesn't condemn your choices. It simply is. There's a strange freedom in this. When nothing matters on a cosmic scale, everything matters on a personal scale. This is Stoicism meeting cosmic dread. You cannot control algorithms. You cannot stop AI development. You cannot resolve information collapse or restore epistemic certainty. These forces are incomprehensible, and you are small. But you can control how you interface with them, not through digital detox fantasies or pretending you can opt out, but through conscious engagement with the knowledge that this entity is vast and incomprehensible, and you are swimming in dark water. Your relationships matter, your creative work matters, your choices matter, not despite the cosmic horror, because of it. You build meaning in the face of indifference. Camus at the Black Mirror. Lovecraft wrote, "We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity." We're past the island now. We're in the water. It's cold. It's vast, it's indifferent, but maybe you're not drowning, maybe you're learning to swim. So here is what I want to know. Now that you see the pattern, algorithms as ancient entities, AI as incomprehensible force, truth as corrupted knowledge, can you unsee it? More importantly, do you want to? What's your great old one of 2025? What incomprehensible force are you swimming through? Leave it in the comments. Because once you've seen the horror, you can't look away. And maybe that's the only honest response to existence, to stare into the void, not because we're brave, but because we're already in it.